Those of you in class here, right, you're going to text Chris Black 113, okay, to 37607. That lets you join. Then you text A, B, C, D, E, or F, okay, to the same number, and that should allow you to kind of participate in the poll. My folks on Zoom, you guys should be able to do the same thing from home if you wouldn't mind. If you've not already done so, please go ahead. No takers for F. I think you guys really, y'all did not find the really good bro stuff in the midst of all this. Okay. So it seems like our numbers are stabilizing a little bit here. I know there may be a couple of you guys that are still working. Okay. So about a third of the class said that what you guys found in supposedly non-scientific literature is that your muscles can get maybe up to about 10% bigger, okay? Nobody found anything in the like 11 to 20. About half of class found the 20 to 30%. A few of you guys found some stuff in the 30 to 40. Nobody found anything more than 40%, okay? And then nobody's in for the bro. There is no limit to how big you can get. I know some of you guys found things that said that was the case because you've already emailed them to me and I have read them in the midst of all. That's okay. All right. So let's do this in a very practical sense. All right. So remember, the thing that we are going to try to talk about today in class, what we're going to try to focus on next is what are the possible adaptations that will occur in your body in response to resistance training or lifting weights, okay? This is going to be one of the things that leads us into this idea of muscular fitness. And based upon muscular fitness, we'll then talk about sort of what is it, how does it predict certain outcomes, et cetera, how do we measure it, okay? How do we prescribe it? But this is one of the things that's going to go into all this, okay? So if your muscles can get, let's just take a nice easy round number and let's say 10%, okay? If your muscles can get 10% bigger, what does that look like in a very practical sense, okay? What are you going to physically look like with 10% bigger muscles? And how much weight do you think you might gain if your muscles get 10% bigger? So who would like to weigh? We need to make people on Zoom get out of bed and do squats until you guys talk. How much bigger? Y'all need to remember, I have a toddler at home. I can win any battle of wills that there is. 10%, a little bit more tone, okay? What do you mean by tone? Right. More defined, okay. Good. So Lorena mentioned a word that we will never, ever, 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 ever mention in class ever again. Okay. We teach a class. I know it's called Tone and Sculpt. It's an activity class. Okay. The idea of being toned is ridiculous. Okay. To be toned, you just need to be skinny, right? If we dissect and pull all the skin and adipose tissue off the cadavers in the anatomy lab, they're going to look really toned, right? We are all in theory toned and have like muscle definition. Some of us are just hiding it under additional things, right? So whereas it makes a good point. I'm going to look a little bit leaner. I'm going to look a little bit more defined in some ways at like 10%, right? I'm not going to look like, I don't know, The Rock or something at 10%. Does that seem fair? Okay. How much weight might you gain if that's going to be the case? 10% bigger muscles. A pound? 5 pounds? 10? 30? What's that going to look like? Taylor, how much weight are you getting? We've made all of your muscles 10% bigger. How much weight do you think you would get? Right? Sure, sure. So you take a person that weighs, let's say, I don't know, 100 pounds, and they gain, their muscles all get 10% bigger. How much weight do you think they're going to gain? Sarah, what do you think? 100-pound person, make their muscles 10% bigger. How much weight do they gain? Okay. Is your body all muscle? Okay. Does anybody know like how much, what percentage of your body is actually muscle? I don't know the answer. We'd have to look it up. I don't know the answer to that. It's going to vary from person to person. Okay. 100-pound person, 10% increase in muscle size, they might gain like 2 or 3 pounds. If we made every muscle in their body, okay, get 10% bigger. Maybe they gain a couple of pounds. Okay. All right. Similarly, nobody's buying the like 10 to 20% bigger. We got lots of folks in the 20 to 30%. If my muscles get 30% bigger, then what do you think I'm going to look like? Am I going to look like The Rock then? No, I want to look like The Rock. Why can't I? Can I do that? How much bigger do I have to get? So 20 to 30. Do you think you could notice, right, if over the course of our semester in class, someone was doing resistance training in class and they got a 30% increase in their muscles? Do you think we could tell just by looking at them, right? Maybe because now all their clothes are like a medium or something, and they're fitting a little tighter, but like, you think that's a noticeable amount, right? Okay, noticeable amount. So what do we think that's going to equate to then, and how much weight a person might gain? Like if you got your muscles 30% bigger, how much weight do you think you can gain? Or you would gain? I'll just put it that way. Probably like a lot. Okay. Well, I mean, is a lot 20 pounds? Is a lot 10 pounds? Like, I don't know what's a lot. Can you define that for me? Be in that area, maybe 10 to 20 pounds. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. You guys think you train every muscle in your body? You're going to do resistance training? Possible to make, I mean, in theory, it is possible if you train something, you could make every muscle bigger. But for the most part, like, we got a lot of muscles that we never really like to train. And you got a bunch of them that are already about as big as they're going to get, like the diaphragm and things, because we use them so often. Okay? All right? You know, like the 40% people. Think you notice 40%? Okay. Now, I know that I asked you guys to just kind of look for things. Where were you looking? Where did you find things? Somebody want to share? We could ask somebody on the Zoom as well. But where did you guys find stuff? You have it written down like the name of the website or whatever it is. Hannah, what do you got? Okay. Okay. Do you think, are those sites targeted to men or women? Or both? In your cursory sort of reading of that. Mixture of both. So women don't want to build muscle? Men are more focused on men, right? Let's put it that way. It's the patriarchy. Men are more focused on, I need to be bigger, look like the Rock, so I don't know, physically intimidate you or compensate for things, lack of personality, whatever it might be. Maybe. Okay. More targeted towards men. Okay. Anybody else? You've got blogs. Anybody have something that's maybe a little, remind me of your name. I'm sorry. You're Mason. Okay. Stronglifts.com. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay. Half a pound of muscle tissue a week. Okay. So I got to figure out like how much we think the Rock weighs. I got to figure out how many weeks I got to do this to get to where I want. Okay. So strong lifts, interesting. Anybody have anything like Runner's World or Women's Health or Shape or anything like that? Somebody go. Okay. Okay. Did it say that it couldn't, or just that their program wouldn't make your muscles bigger? Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. You guys think it matters? Do you think there are differences in the ability of men and women to make their muscles bigger? That's some nods of yes. We're going to come back to that. Okay. So we're kind of here. All right. You guys want to know what the real answer is to this question? Okay. If you looked ahead in the slides, you probably know what the answer is. Okay. So the ability with proper resistance training to increase muscle size is going to vary from person to person. Okay. There is a relatively strong genetic component in all of this. We actually know what some of the genes are. I could take a cheek swab from every one of you and tell you kind of potentially where you fall on the spectrum of potential, okay? But in a very general sense, okay? In a very general sense, I'm going to wheel this over here. I don't know why I don't have this graph. It looks like this, okay? This is what we call a normal distribution. You guys, anybody had stats at all? Any kind of a stat class or anything? This is a normal distribution. The mean is going to be somewhere right about here, okay? So with resistance training from a hypertrophy standpoint, so how much bigger can you make your muscles? The average from the literature that we have, where we do these big studies that test, hundreds and hundreds of people, is average is probably about 15% in maybe 12 weeks of training, so in like 3 months, okay? With the vast majority of people falling somewhere between probably 10 and maybe 20%, okay? So most of you guys, almost everyone, okay, if you do training in the manner that we will talk about We may get to it on, no, we won't. It'll probably be next Monday. Right? It's actually, today is actually Wednesday and not Monday. So when we get into exercise prescription for this, you do what we say that you should do. You're probably going to be right about there. Okay? Right in that area. Now, some people may be way out here. Okay? They may get a 50 to a 70% increase in muscle mass. There are a few people. We would call these like super responders or something. Rather than being a super spreader for COVID, you're like a super high-end responder. Are these the people that can become our best athletes? Maybe. Okay? Maybe not. It just kind of depends. Conversely, there are some of you that are going to be on this other end. Do everything right. Work out, lift perfectly. Okay? Eat perfectly. Everything just the way you're supposed to. And your muscles go, we're good. Not going to get much better. So there are some people that are basically non-responders. Okay? They're rare, but there are a few people that they can lift and lift and lift and lift and lift. They will get stronger, but their muscles really will not hypertrophy, really will not be. Okay? So the vast majority of things are in this kind of 10 to 20% range. Okay? So if we look at this, for the most part, what you guys found on our non-scientific websites, they're not super wrong, but none of them were kind of truly kind of in the right kind of range that's going to be. So a little math for you guys. If you take a 150-pound person, okay, who has 15% body fat, so they're pretty lean, okay, that would be a spectacularly lean woman, okay, that would be 15% body fat. That's a kind of a small-ish but kind of relatively normal college-age male body composition. If they increase every single muscle in their body 15%, they would gain 8 pounds. Okay, 8 pounds. So this, Nick, is going to get into your thing where you said you had like 100 pounds of lean tissue. Some of that lean tissue, a lot of that lean tissue is water. And so if we can kind of break it into the actual muscle tissue and those things, we can kind of cut some things. Okay? So when you hear people say, dude, I put on 30 pounds of muscle. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Okay? Probably not without steroids. Or, you know, I'm 16 and I've never lifted weights before and I'm still growing and doing things. Sure. Okay? That makes some sense. All right? But most people are not going to be able to just kind of magically get giant. Okay? The Rock looks like The Rock because The Rock takes steroids. We don't have any actual evidence of this, but if you look at old pictures of him from when he played football at Miami or early in his wrestling career, he didn't look like this. And I don't care how much like turkey and eggs and things that you do, whatever crazy workouts you do, you know, it's not, he's on some stuff. So, okay. Now, this idea that bro, there's no limit to how they can get, that's also wrong. There is a limit. Okay, there is a limit. You all have a certain amount of genetic potential. There is some top end to this. We don't really truly understand what it is in everybody. We don't truly fully understand kind of the hows and the whys of it. Okay, why some people can get 10% bigger and no bigger, why some people can get 30% but no bigger. We have some ideas, but there is a limit. So there's the idea, right, where I'm going to gain half a pound a week if I do this program over and over and over and over and over. And at some point, that ceases to be true, right? I can't just lift indefinitely and all of a sudden weigh like 300 pounds and look like The Rock. Can't do it. I'm just not going to get that big and stay that lean. I could certainly probably eat enough and be 300 pounds, okay? But not that. Okay. The Does that make sense, guys? Kind of, sort of, maybe. Yes. You have anybody in here that's like, yes, I'm the non-responder that you want to talk about? Anybody that's the super responder? Just like I look at weights and I just get jacked. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a different question. All right, we're going to do a different question. So exactly, we're going to have to make this the exact same thing, okay? This time it's how much stronger can your muscles get? Not just how big, but how much stronger. So what did your things that you looked for tell you? Very pleasing to me about watching the bars. I don't know what it is. My Zoom folks, have y'all done this? So these numbers look a little different. Okay, a little different. Nobody found that you can get 10% strong. That seems too low. Right. Okay. So you've got some folks at the 20 to 30, a lot of people, more than half, at the over 50%. Does that seem too high? I can't make my muscles that much bigger, but yet I can get that strong. How do we work that? How do we make those two things fit together? Okay. Megan, which one did you have? It's C, okay, 20 to 30%, okay? So did they offer any kind of further explanation? They were just like, hey, this is about how much stronger you can get. Okay. Okay, no, that's okay. Most things don't talk about this, right? They talk about how much bigger can you get, like you can put on this many pounds or whatever. So that could be a thing, okay? Somebody that's here that had the 50%, greater than 50% one, talk to me about it. What did it say? Okay, sure. Okay. No, that's a really good kind of anecdote. Let me give you an example of this, okay? And again, we're going to miss out on this, which is my favorite day in all of class, where we make everybody lift as much weight as you can doing a bench press. We do bench press 1 RMs, which is, it's just, I get very tickled by the whole thing. I mean, people are sore the next day. Like it's such a great illustration of so many things for us. Well, let's just say, okay, you can bench press 100 pounds. Okay, right now you can bench press 100 pounds. If you're able to increase 20 to 30%, like Megan's saying, then you would be able to, with proper training, at some point be able to bench 120 or 130 pounds. Okay? If you're more than 50%, then maybe you could bench 150 or more in that way. Okay? Or you can think about it, I could squat that much or something like that. Okay? So to me, if you've ever lifted, which a lot of people may not have, if you've ever lifted and you remember what things were like when you started, you've never done it before. Okay? Lifting, you're kind of like a baby giraffe or something. You have no real sense of what's going on. And then you can get really, really strong. This is the right answer. Okay? For most people, with most lifts, especially if you've never done it before, or you've done it very, very infrequently, it's not uncommon to see 50, 75, 100% increases in strength. So it's not uncommon to be able to double the amount of weight that you can lift over the course of 12 or 16 weeks of training or 6 months of training. Okay? So our ability to increase strength vastly exceeds our ability to make our muscles bigger. Okay? That's one of our key takeaways. Now, increases in strength, and we'll talk about in a few minutes why they go up much more so than size does. Increases in strength are very, very, very dependent upon how strong you are and how accustomed to performing a lift you are when you start. Okay? So if I was to take any of you that have never done a bench press before, and I have you do a bench press, and I train you for, say, 3 months doing bench press, I bet we can easily double how much you can bench press from where you are today. Okay? If I take some of you that maybe have already bench pressed, or you're already doing squats or deadlifts or curls or something you've been doing for a while, and I take you and we go from now, I probably can't further double how much stronger you are. Okay? If you've been doing something for quite a while, you've already gained a lot of strength, then my ability to make it go up is going to look a lot more like what happens from a hypertrophy. Okay? So if you see these wild things like, oh yeah, follow our program and you're going to get 100% stronger, that's not that crazy. Okay? That's not that crazy, especially in people that are novices, that are not used to doing this. Okay? You know, you go to CrossFit and they tell you you're going to do, today you can do one half-assed terrible form kip up, right? In 6 months, you may be able to do, 100 of them or something like that. If you work at these things, it really, really works. Okay? Okay. Anybody have questions about this so far? If I can say that again, please. I'm sorry, I got distracted by a thing here. Something about, is there a point in time at which we can't do things anymore? Is that what?
Yeah, like it doesn't strengthen like how strong you get. Is there a point where you can no longer train?
Yes, absolutely. So the question that Megan asked is a really, really good one. Okay. So one of the ways that we get strong, okay, you guys can work out today. I can teach you something new today, and tomorrow or Friday we have you come back and do the exact same thing, and you will immediately be able to lift more weight, okay, tomorrow or Friday than you did today. Okay, your muscles haven't gotten any bigger, that takes a much, much longer amount of time. So one of the things that goes into this, I guess just to kind of lead to there, let me go ahead and just pull up what's going on. Is that you increase the amount of recruitment and coordination of motor unit firing almost immediately. Okay? So if we talked about last week that the things that determine how strong you are basically are how big are your muscles and how much of that muscle can you recruit at any one given moment in time. Okay? So if your muscles don't get bigger for a little while, but you get stronger, then you have increased recruitment. Now, your muscles are only so big, right? At some point, you will have learned how to turn on every muscle fiber in that muscle that you have, okay? And when that happens, then there's no more ability to increase force by turning on more muscle. You're as good at doing that activity with the amount of muscle that you have as you're ever going to get, okay? So then, if I want to get stronger beyond that, what am I going to have to do? Increase my muscle. Okay. So I have a graph that kind of shows how this fits together in a few slides. Okay, but Megan's point is really, really good. Right? You learn how to do something. You guys may think of it as, oh, I feel much more coordinated doing this activity today. Right? It feels easier and less awkward than it did yesterday or the day before. Again, if we can do a bench press with someone who's never done a bench press, and you watch them, it's like baby giraffes trying to hold the bar. And after doing that a couple of times, you're like, oh, I now kind of understand where the bar goes, what muscles are contracting, kind of what this movement looks like. And once you've got that, then you're immediately stronger. You feel like you're more coordinated. Okay? That is due to increased recruitment, and you're learning how to turn on, because most movements involve more than one muscle. You're learning which muscles to turn on when and kind of what. Okay? Other things that happen. We talked about the muscle size gets bigger. You're also going to strengthen or increase the size and stretchiness of tendons, ligaments, and you're going to increase the size and the bone mineral density in your bones, which makes the bones stronger. Okay? All of these things are going to be necessary to prevent injury from having bigger, stronger muscles. Okay? Other things that I'm gonna mention them now, but they're not gonna make as much sense to you. Okay, we're not gonna focus on them until we get into some of our chronic diseases, but doing resistance training exercises, so lifting weights, can improve your blood cholesterol levels. Okay? It's a slightly different thing than what we have here, but it will lower LDL cholesterol and raise HDL cholesterol and potentially lower your total cholesterol. Okay? This is good for some kinds of cardiovascular disease. Okay? It also improves something called insulin sensitivity. And what this is a measure of how much glucose or how much sugar from your blood gets taken up into skeletal muscle in response to the release of insulin. People that are type 2 diabetics, okay, are really bad at this. They have very, very poor insulin sensitivity. So when you do resistance training, it makes this better. So this is going to be a possible way by which performing resistance training exercise can help reduce our risk of cardiovascular disease and reduce our risk or be used as a possible treatment for type 2 diabetes. Okay? And we will talk much more about kind of the hows and whys that happens when we get into cardiovascular disease and we get into diabetes. Okay? But in addition to just being, bigger and stronger and that having important things, it's also going to work on some of these underlying comorbidities. Okay, so we already kind of hit on this, right? How much stronger can you get? In general, 25 to 100% increase in strength over a period of 3 to 6 months. Here's the fun part, though. Okay, strength gains appear if you look at them relative to an individual person's starting point, strength gains tend to be similar between men and women, old people and young people. Okay? So ladies, per whatever your initial strength is, you can get relatively as strong as all of the guys. Okay? Or guys, you can get relatively as strong as the women. Okay? Older people can tend to get just as relatively strong as young people. What happens is old people tend to be much more sedentary. They've lost strength over time. And so if we start training them again, even in their 60s and 70s and 80s, they can markedly increase their strength. Pretty similar to if you take an untrained 20-year-old and have them start doing things, their strength increase will look a lot like, say, an increase in an untrained 70-year-old. Okay? This, to me, is good for a couple of reasons. Okay? One, it dispels a myth, okay, that women cannot get as strong as men, kind of relative to their size. And we will see that we need strength, okay, to perform certain daily activities. And so it's important, especially in older women, to remind them that if they will train some, they can also get stronger, and that will help them with walking, and up and down stairs, and getting into and out of the bathtub, or whatever it is that they're doing. Okay? And then the old and the young, in some ways it doesn't matter when you start. Even if you are out of shape and you're old, if you'll start doing things, improvements. And that's going to be really, really important. Okay? Now, getting older people to do it, getting some women and some men, younger men and women to do it is a whole separate. Okay? All right, so there are two components to strength gains. We've mentioned these two things kind of already to some extent in passing. There are what we call these neural adaptations. This is the ability to increase recruitment of motor neurons. Okay? And then there are what we call contractile protein adaptation. This is where the muscle itself gets bigger or hypertrophies. You have more active myosin in the muscle. Okay? Now, the time course, so when each of these adaptations occur, and the contribution of each to the increase in strength is going to vary over time. Okay? In general, it takes somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks to see noticeable increases in muscle size, okay, with resistance training. Noticeable increases take 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes a little bit longer. These neural adaptations, as we already mentioned, neural adaptations begin immediately. Okay? After one bout of resistance training, you can see changes in the fruit. You can see neural adaptations very, very fast. Okay? So these two things create some problems for us when we're doing resistance training programs. Okay? We all live and are used to, I want it now, right? I want this, I'm just going to Postman. Oh, I want this, I'm going to get it on Amazon, and it'll show up later today with like a little R2-D2 robot will bring it to my house or something, right? So we're used to wanting things now. And so if I tell you, I'm sorry, you've got to come in here 4 times a week for 8 weeks and do what I asked you to do before you're going to see your muscles get bigger, it's hard to keep wanting to do things because you're not seeing measurable progress from that standpoint. Okay? So that can be an issue. Now, you can see increases in strength very, very fast. But the problem is that in that first 8 weeks, you're going to get really strong, really fast, and then it's going to kind of level off because you're going to get good enough. Your neural adaptations are going to all kind of kick in early on, and then they're going to level off, and you have to wait until your muscles get bigger before you can get a lot stronger. So you will have people that will have been lifting for years and years, and they've maxed out how big their muscles can get, and they're really kind of almost maxed out this, and you're just kind of where you are. This is what you can lift. Okay? So it's kind of what goes on. Here were some data from a study that we did when I was a PhD student. These are MRI images of a person's leg taken right at about mid-thigh. Yes, it looks like a steak because that's what steak is, right? Steak is muscle. So this is in a person that had a spinal cord injury. And here they were beforehand. If I put up something for comparison, this is their quad here, okay? Vastus lateralis, rectus femoris, medialis, and then the intermedius is there. This is the bone marrow in their femur. This is the dark spot is the axial kind of bone tissue in their femur. You got their hamstrings down here. There's their femoral artery. The stuff on the outside is just what you think it is, it's subcutaneous fat. Okay. If I put up a regular kind of normal able-bodied walking person's leg here, their calf would be about the size of this person's like upper leg. Very, very small leg. Okay. We train them 2 times a week, 4 sets of 10. We slap these like electrodes on their legs, and we gave them an electrical stimulator. We ran current into their leg. They would sit on the edge of their bed, and they would crank it, and it would make their quad contract. And so they would just raise their leg up. And when they got where they could do that, right, for all things, we put like a 2-pound weight around their ankle, and they would do that as well. Do that 2 times a week, okay? 4 sets of 10, 80 contractions in a week. In 3 months, you can see, look, they went from here to there. This massive increase in muscle size because they were tiny to begin with, okay? Most of you guys aren't going to do this. On average, they got about 75% bigger in the first 3 months. You guys can't do that. Now, what they saw from, say, 3 months to 6 months is much closer to what a normal person would be able to do. Okay? So that we just kind of got them close to back to what an average person might look like here. And then they got another about 20% bigger. I know it doesn't look that way. It doesn't look nearly as impressive. Just to kind of illustrate. When we get bigger muscles, when you get contractile protein adaptation, okay, what is happening is here's our untrained person, here's our trained person whose muscle has gotten 20% bigger. You will note that they have the exact same number of muscle fibers that they did before and after. It's just that each individual fiber has itself gotten bigger. Okay, this is called hypertrophy. Okay, this is what we think of as the primary increase, the primary way that we increase muscle size in humans. Okay, in humans. You are born with all the muscle fibers you're ever going to have in your life. All we can do is make the ones that you have. Okay. So, I think it's on here. No. I'm going to talk about this. We'll talk about hyperplasia, and then we'll back up and do the other ones. Okay? There's another idea, another thought in how muscles might get bigger, how they might have friction. And there is some evidence in animals that this may happen. We don't really have any evidence that it happens in people. And it's called hyperplasia. Okay? Hyperplasia is going to mean that you have one muscle fiber, and then to get bigger, that one muscle fiber splits and becomes 2 fibers. And then each of those 2 fibers that you have can then also get bigger. And then 2 can split and become 4, and so on and so forth. Okay? This idea of fiber splitting. Okay? So there is some evidence that in animals it may occur. Okay? We look at ways to cause rats and cats and mice to make their muscles get bigger. We can see it. We don't think it happens in people as long as you don't take anabolic steroids. Okay. Now, there's not a lot of good evidence. You know how we figure out how many fibers you have in your, like in your bicep? You have to die, and then some poor grad student has to dissect you and tease out and count every individual muscle fiber. Okay? So I can't very well like cut out your bicep, count your fibers, hook your bicep back in, train you for 12 weeks to cut out your bicep again, and then count all of them again to see what's actually happened. So it's a little bit tricky for us to get good evidence in humans, but we don't think that it's happening. In a lot of popular press, a lot of bodybuilding blogs and Reddits and websites and things, they talk about this. Okay? If you take anabolic steroids, then there's a chance that it's okay. Okay. So other things to keep in mind when we talk about the contractile protein adaptation. Okay? Are there differences in fiber types? So if you have more slow twitch fibers compared to fast twitch fibers, is that going to have some effect on how much bigger your muscles can be? Is this one of the things that genetically determines how much bigger your muscles can be? And so what we tend to see is that the answer to this is no. Okay? All muscle fiber types can hypertrophy, and relative to their starting size, they all seem to hypertrophy in roughly equal manner. Okay? Now, in general, slow twitch fibers tend to be a little bit smaller than fast twitch fibers. If you express hypertrophy relative to the starting point, they're all going to increase in about the same. Okay? Another thing that I think presents kind of untapped potential to make some money is something called transient hypertrophy. Okay? Transient hypertrophy is this immediate increase in muscle size that happens right after you've worked out. It is sometimes called the pump. Right? I go and I do some squats, and I'm like, man, my quads are just blown up right now. Okay? And so what has happened is this is mostly due to the accumulation of fluid or edema. So your muscles sweat. Right? You go in there, we can grab a dumbbell, right? I can make Lynn do like 10 sets of 10 doing some bicep curls. We can make her biceps swell up some. Because what's happening is we're driving fluid, we're driving water out of her plasma and her blood into her muscles. Okay? Now, this happens. This is half the reason why bros all have their shirts cut off, right? You've seen them. You ever go to the weight room and they do some stuff and pull the shirt up and look, what's happening? Look at me, what am I looking like? Okay? They're checking their transient hypertrophy. And then, of course, they go home, and about 2 hours later, right, the fluid leaves the muscle, all kind of equilibrates back, and they shrunk back down to whatever. So there's untapped potential. You can put weights in every bathroom, in every bar in town. And you go in and you like little scooters, you can scan your debit card, right? And for like $2, you can get some curls in the bathroom and make sure that your medium is looking extra medium. Okay? I think there's really potential for this. So, but that's the idea of transient hypertrophy. Your muscles do get bigger, but it's just fluid. And that fluid's all going to go away. There's not any more actin or myosin or protein. Okay, so in order to make them bigger, we have to alter something called protein balance in muscles. Okay? And so my dad, the football coach, was very fond of saying, I don't know where he got this, something that you're going to get better today, you're going to get worse today. Okay? You never say the same. You get better, or you're going to get worse. Your muscles function on a very kind of similar thing. Okay? Right now, your muscles are either getting bigger or they're getting smaller. They're not really ever staying the same. This is because of this idea of protein turnover and protein balance. Okay? In your body, in your muscles, there's this constant push and pull of something called protein synthesis, so making new protein, making new actin and myosin, and something called protein degradation, which is breaking down, right, the protein in your muscle into its constituent amino acids. So we can then send them off someplace else. So if I want to make my muscles bigger, I want to make them hypertrophy, I need to be in what we call a positive protein balance. So I need to put myself in a place where protein synthesis is going to predominate over degradation for some extended period of time. Okay? When degradation predominates over a long period of time, then the muscles will atrophy or shrink. So that then kind of puts us into this idea of, all right, well, if I need to get or I want bigger muscles, that means I have to have more protein synthesis. So what is it that controls protein synthesis? And what is it that controls degradation? So I'm going to make this go up and this go down, and maybe I can help with the muscles. So protein balance, protein synthesis, and degradation are complicated processes. They are regulated by many things. Okay? But one of the primary things that regulates them are hormones. Okay? So growth factors, okay, hormones like testosterone, growth hormone, something called IGF-1, which stands for insulin-like growth factor 1. These are what we call anabolic hormones. Estrogen is an anabolic hormone. Okay? These are hormones that, when applied to a tissue, increase protein synthesis. There are some catabolic hormones that, when applied to a tissue, increase protein degradation. Things like epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. Okay? So as you can imagine, when we undertake resistance training, we are trying to do something to maybe shift kind of what the hormonal milieu in our body is going to look like. We want to do some things that may increase the expression of anabolic hormones and decrease the expression of catabolic hormones. Another important thing for all of this is, are you eating protein? If I just feed you protein, okay, I give all of you a protein shake right now, in about 45 minutes, your protein synthesis rates will begin to go up just because you've been fed protein. Okay? If I don't feed you protein for like 3 or 4 days in a row, your body's going to start increasing protein degradation. Okay? So there's this balance between hormones and diet, or these branched chain amino acids, so protein coming in from your diet. And so you need the kind of right balance of all of these things together in order to try to promote adequate increases in synthesis to make the muscles stable. Okay. We did this. Are there limits? Yes, we talked about what's going on there. Okay. We talked a lot about neural adaptations, how quickly they occur. Quickly, we'll talk about bones and tendons and ligaments, and then we'll take a little break. Okay. Okay, so in order to accommodate for the fact that your muscles are bigger and stronger, some other changes need to take place. Your bones also have to get stronger. Your tendons and ligaments have to get stronger, because as you apply more force with your muscles, then you're able to put more stress on your bones, and you're going to put more stress on your ligaments. So the primary thing that happens with bone, and we'll talk a lot about this later on towards the very end, we talk about changes that occur in bone aging, especially post-menopause in women, is that resistance training, lifting weights or doing things where you jump and land a bunch, okay, they're going to stimulate bones to take calcium and bring calcium in and make those bones stronger. Okay? We call this increase in calcium content, increase in bone mineral density. Okay? So when you place stress from the high force, a bending stress, a twisting stress, okay? As I do, see how I can do what I'm doing today. If you know, wear my stretchy jeans. Okay? Ladies, y'all have had like stretchy pants and stretchy jeans for like years and years, and they've just come into like men's dress pants and jeans in the last few years, and I'm very bitter about all of this. Life is a bit better with stretchy pants. So my wife laughs at me in all of this. But I'm going to do a squat, okay? So I'm going to squat, all right? Here, I am exerting force, and so imagine what's happening on my femur. There's force coming off here. There's force at my hips and things, and my femur is down almost parallel to the ground here, okay? As that happens, imperceptibly, okay, the femur is bending ever so slightly. Okay? If I do something where I jump and I land, I'm compressing the femur ever so slightly. Okay? I do something where I'm twisting a little bit, it's going to get twisted. That stress, okay, leads to the deposition of more calcium. So the next time that it gets stressed, it bleeds a little bit less, or it twists a little bit less. So the bone just becomes strong. This limits the chance of you breaking or fracturing a bone. Okay. The problem with this is that while a muscle may take 6 to 8 weeks to get bigger, it may take 6 months to a year for there to be measurable increases in bone mineral. So you've got to be very, very, very consistent at doing this. Okay? So it takes a long time. Ladies, I hate to tell most of y'all, but you're probably right at about the peak of your bone mineral density right now. Okay? If you've never done like running, sprinting, gymnastics, squats, things like that, I urge you to start now. Okay? Because you've got a few more years to be able to increase your bone mineral density, ladies, and then it's going to start waning off, and you're going to hit menopause, which is really going to get. So you need as much now as you can get. Okay. I would say, guys, really, it's just Nick and I. So, Nick, we're probably okay because we don't have any estrogen, so ours is not going to take really kind of on the back. Okay. So, just things to keep in mind. So, when you do resistance training, your bones will also get stronger, and this can be really important, especially in women. This is one of the best benefits to encouraging women to do and undertake resistance training now and throughout their life. Because it really prevents the loss, or a lot of the loss of bone density. Okay, so there's talk about connective tissue. Okay, tendons, ligaments, other connective tissues will also increase their strength. Okay? So the way that happens is when you stretch tendons and ligaments and things, you put stress on them, that's going to send a signal for them to deposit more collagen into those tendons and ligaments. Collagen is the substance that makes them stretchy and makes them kind of elastic and strong, right? And so that's going to go in. That's going to help us prevent ligament and tendon injuries as size and strength increases. Okay? And so it typically is the high force and the high stress as we load those connective tissue elements that's going to cause them to deposit collagen. One of the hallmarks of athletes that are taking anabolic steroids is an increased prevalence of tendon and ligament injuries in that population, because tendons and ligaments don't take 6 to 12 months like bone to get bigger. It's faster, but they're still slower than skeletal muscle. And so athletes, it's very often athletes that are taking anabolic steroids, the muscles get bigger, they get stronger very, very quickly, really strong, really fast. And that strength is going to put too much stress on their ligaments and tendons that are lagging behind their ligaments and increase their collagen. And it's going to put them at a much increased risk of having injuries in this case. So, also there's some fascinating research out there now on feeding people collagen or gelatin in trying to increase the strength of their ligaments. You don't really want to know what's in, you just know what's in Jello. Don't Google it. It's not a good picture. Okay? But there's collagen in it. And so you can buy it as a supplement. You can take it. It's one of the few things out there that I would actually really good support and evidence that it's helpful. Okay. Adaptation. Disuse is kind of the opposite of everything. When you stop using things, you lose the neural adaptation. You get protein degradation, so your muscles get smaller. Okay, your force production goes down, protein synthesis decreases. Your mitochondrial enzymes, that you haven't really talked about, are going to decrease. So there's some really kind of crazy things. Okay. guess I should mention, also as a PhD student, we got a grant from a drug company. It's always drug companies. They thought they had this, wonderful drug that would basically prevent muscle atrophy from disuse. We just give you this drug. They're basically going to cure all of the muscular problems of aging with one pill. It worked in animals. They called it Mighty Mouse. It was pretty funny. They would give it to these mice, and the mice would just like, they would hang the mice up by their tails. And so if their back legs wouldn't hit on the ground, and their back legs would get really small if you didn't do anything, they would give them the pill, and their back legs would stay the same size, and their front arms would get huge. So they tasked us to come up with a way to try to figure out the best way to see how much smaller we could make people's muscles. So what we did was we simulated space flight on the ground, right? And so we put an 8-inch platform on their right shoe so they could still drive a car. Gave them some crutches so people can see. So you're here, right? So you're crutching around, and your left leg is swinging free. So there's no weight being borne on your left leg. So you crutch around, and then you get to wherever you're going. You have to sit down. You have to prop your leg up. Okay? You get out of bed at night to go to the bathroom. You had to hop on one leg and go around. It's called unilateral lower limb suspension. It's meant to mimic space flight. So you can still move the leg, but there's no like resistance. It's not against resisting against it. Okay? In a month, you saw 12% loss of quadriceps mass and 15 to 18% loss in gastroc and soleus. Okay? So it may take 12 or 16 weeks to increase your muscle size that fast. And like inside of 2 weeks, we saw 8 to 10% decrease in muscle size. So it goes away really, really fast if you don't do things. Okay? And so it's a kind of an interesting thing. NASA is really fascinated by all of this. If we want to send people to Mars or we want to send people into the International Space Station, they're weightless. We have to have a way to get them to be able to exercise up there to be able to maintain muscle mass so they can actually move around and do things. So, okay. I'm going to all right. Here's what I want all of you to do. Okay? And for my Zoom people, we won't make you turn your cameras on, but I want you to do this at home as well. Okay? Our next concept is the idea of assessing muscular fitness. Talk about how muscles work, things that go into how strong they are, okay? Things that can happen, how strength and size and whatnot may change if you are in the position. So the thing to do now is we need to have an understanding of you have showed up. You are my client for physical therapy, occupational therapy, okay? I'm an MD, you're my patient. Or you're a personal trainer or a strength coach or something. And you've got these people. Or maybe it's just you're running this for your sorority because, I don't know, there's, do like Olympics. Sororities do like Olympics, like there's a tug of war or something, or you're like, no, they're not doing this year, but our intramural football team is going to be the best ladies. We're gonna train, we're gonna make it happen. Okay? We need to know how would we go about figuring out where people are right now, okay? So that we can then understand what we need to work on from a muscular fitness to move forward. Okay? So muscular fitness is strength and endurance. Okay? It's strength and endurance. Those two particular things are the same. So I want you all to do this for me. Okay? You all kind of even out. So I want everybody to stand up. Nick, I want you to go back a little ways. Okay? Maybe not like right next to Rachel, but like even farther back than that. Everybody's got a little bit of space. Okay? Even if you want to just like slide behind you guys. Everybody stand up. Okay, everybody stand up. Don't look so excited about it. We are going to, right now, assess your fitness. Okay? We're going to assess your fitness. Okay. Let me get my stopwatch out. All right. Here's what I want you to do. Arms out. Okay? Arms out. All right, we're going. We're going to see how long you can hold your arms at your side. Okay? This may not seem like an ideal way to assess muscular fitness, but we're doing two things. One, you need X amount of strength to hold your arms out at your sides. Okay? If your arms weigh something, it takes a certain amount of strength. It also takes some amount of what we would call local muscular endurance to also be able to generate that force required to do this for some period of time. Right? I could probably take all of you. This is not a maximal assessment of strength. Like we could take them, you could hang some kind of like this could hold under a backpack or something, right? Like out here on our arms and make it even more difficult. Okay? How are we doing? Anybody getting shaky yet? You guys are so young and strong and good and so nice. Okay? So we are assessing fitness. You guys can stop and put your arms down. Okay? Put your arms down. You guys made it a minute. Okay? You all have enough muscular fitness to do that particular task for 1 minute. Okay? Can you envision a scenario where there are people that cannot do that? Right? You think if we ask your grandparents to do this, could they hold their arms out for a minute? Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay? What if you had injured your shoulder playing a sport or doing something, right? Maybe you can't pick it up today. Right? You don't have enough strength and you don't have enough strength. That would be a way to assess strength. Okay? All of you were able to hold both arms out. Okay? There might have been a scenario where you could do one, but you got to put one of the other ones down at some point. They got a good arm and a bad arm, right? I've had a stroke. Okay? One side of my body is much more adversely affected than the other. And so now I'm like, oh, my good side can do this. My not so good side, it's got to go down. So now there's an imbalance, right? An imbalance in strength and or endurance from one side of my body to the other. Okay? That information can be removed. That's considered. Okay? Knowing these things, you guys do this in your everyday life all the time, okay? But knowing what you can and can't do, knowing if one side is better or worse than the other side, this is very good information for, okay, my right arm is fine, my left arm is not so good, I better focus my training or my rehab or something on that one to try to make it look more like the other side, okay? Now, the other part of that, on the other end of things, okay, is not rehabilitation, but it's this idea of tracking progress from some sort of like really kind of big strength training, right? We have several of our graduate students that are competitive power lifters, okay? These guys aren't necessarily the bros of all bros, but they're pretty bro, right? And it's like they bench press, they squat, and then do something called a deadlift, which is the bar is down here, and you just reach down and you pick it up like so. Okay? What they want to do is they need to train to be able to not do that over and over and over, but just do it once, right? The most weight I can pick up once. The most weight I can squat once. Okay? So the thing that I had you guys do is more of a kind of functional thing that's going to involve strength and endurance. We can also do an assessment that is just purely what is the maximal force that you can do. Okay? And we can use that then. If we know where you're starting, we can then train you for a while and see if you've gotten better. Okay? And then how much better? Then know it's working, keep doing it. It's not working, change things. Okay? So does that make sense? Have I at least convinced you to some extent that being able to measure and assess muscular fitness can be quite important, regardless of whatever it is that you want to kind of leave here to go on. Okay? And it doesn't have to be a very, very formal process where we put hard and fast numbers to things, okay? Lots of folks will go to a PT clinic or you want to be an athletic trainer. It's like, okay, just kind of push against this. Yep, that feels that way. Your other leg can't pushes quite so hard. You may need to focus on the other side. It doesn't have to be kind of as formalized as all of that. Okay? So we sort of hit around this, but I want to make sure that you understand the specific definitions. Okay? Muscular strength is the ability to exert force. Okay? Maximal muscular strength is the most force that a muscle or a muscle group can generate one time. That is going to then be determined by the size of the muscle. This is maximal strength. That's one component of muscular fitness. The other one is this idea called muscular endurance. It's sometimes called local muscular endurance. And this is the muscle's ability to continue to exert some sub-maximal amount of force over successive repetitions. Okay? You guys remember probably when you were in maybe elementary school or junior high, give you the presidential physical fitness test. You do some push-ups and some sit-ups, right? Maybe like a mile or something in a certain amount of time. If I have you, okay, I said, Kayla, I want you to do as many push-ups for us right now as you can. That would not be a test of her maximal strength, very likely. But it's a test of her local muscular endurance because she's strong enough to do one push-up, we're going to assume, right? But then we want to see, can she generate enough force to do that push-up more than one time? So she can do 10 push-ups or 15 push-ups or 70 push-ups. Go into to finally can generate that force. Okay. So both of these things are considered components of fitness. Okay? Both of these things are important if you want to be an athlete. They're both important if you want to just function in your daily life. Okay? But they're slightly different kinds of concepts. Okay? Does that make sense? So we're going to talk now a little bit about some specific ways to test maximal strength, and then some of the more common tests to kind of get at. Okay. So we talked about some of these health benefits already. It's good to have good muscular fitness because it enhances lean tissue or fat-free or muscle mass. That's good for your metabolic rate, which means you're going to Chick-fil-A more. Okay. Preservation or the enhancement of bone mineral density and glucose tolerance. These are kind of good health outcomes that we get from this, right? Grab walk and deadlift 255, which may not mean anything to you guys, but that's pretty damn impressive. Okay, but people that have better muscular fitness have lower heart rate and lower blood pressure. They have lower risk of musculoskeletal injuries. They have lower risk of low back pain. Okay, which is you guys will learn later on in class. Low back pain is like the first or second leading cause of adult disability in the U.S. Okay, it helps you to have better fitness, carry out activities of daily living in old age. Okay, if you have better fitness, you can live by yourself without having to go to assisted living for a longer period of time. Or when you do go to assisted living or you do live by yourself, you can go walk with your friends or play golf or whatever it is that you want to do. It's going to improve your ability to do that. Better fitness has better balance, decreased risk of falls. Okay? Combining less risk of fall with better bone mineral density. That's good. It also leads to improvements in self-esteem across the age spectrum. People that are stronger, okay, tend to have a better sense of themselves. They feel better about themselves. Okay? That's going to be where we'll talk about anxiety and depression and self-esteem things and the benefits of muscular and cardiovascular fitness. Okay. Now the scary part. Okay? Here's why we need to care. What I have here in front of you, okay, these are what we call survivor curves. These are, this is leg strength. So this is putting people on this machine over here. I'm going to walk over here and show you guys the class. Putting people on this machine, for the leg press machine. Okay? Right here. You sit in it, you come up like this. You put lay on here, and you push it up. It's like doing a squat basically while sitting down. Okay? So what these people did was they measured leg press strength in a group of older individuals. Okay? In a group of older individuals. We have men and we have women. And in this group, they then tracked them over the course of like the next 6 or 7 years. And they stratified them based upon like into kind of quarters, right? Yeah, based upon these people that were the strongest, and the people that were kind of the next quarter strongest, the weakest, kind of in like this. And they just tracked, and their simple outcome was how many of them died, okay, over the course of this 5 or 6 or 7 year follow. And what you see is basically the same in men and in women, okay? The strongest groups have the fewest number of people that die over the course of their follow. The weakest groups have the most number of people that will die. And so, based upon this, we can say, in older individuals, okay, we can use leg press strength to predict how much longer you're going to live. Okay? You can take all of this, they've tested thousands and thousands of people. You can do a statistical thing called a regression equation, and we basically plug your strength in, and it will tell us then, based upon average kind of data, how long past where you are it thinks that you are. Okay? The basic take home, though, is the stronger you are with your legs, the longer you live. Okay? Now, for my next trip, it's not coming for me. Now, leg strength maybe makes some sense, right? You need leg strength to stand and to walk and things like that. Like that might make some sense. Like if I can't stand up and I can't walk, I'm going to be bedridden. That might be bad for me from a health outcome. Okay? What if I told you that I don't even need to do this? All I have to do is have you guys squeeze this thing for me, and I can measure your grip strength and do the exact same thing. Okay? Because indeed I can. I can take grip strength and predict survivability based upon grip strength. And it looks roughly the same. People that are stronger from a grip strength standpoint are going to live longer. Okay? I'm trying to work out a way to do this. You probably find a way as part of your lab, your first lab, all of you are going to assess your grip strength. Okay? Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to plug it into some equation and try to figure out how much longer you're going to live. It mostly only works in people that are over the age of 65. Equations are set up. Okay? Also, you guys are going to get normative values to compare yours against. You have to remember that these norms were put together back in the olden days when people did like manual labor a lot. They didn't just like type on their phone. You couldn't just, like say, hey, Alexa, order me a pizza or something like that. So you're going to look maybe a little weaker than what you might. Okay? So like I squeeze, and I was able to generate about 90 pounds of grip strength force. So you would take my 90 pounds, plug it into some equation, and it would say like I'm going to live 8 more years, 10 more years, 2 more years. Okay? So muscular strength predicts mortality. Why do we need to care about muscular fitness? Muscular strength predicts mortality. It also predicts walking, and it predicts the whole activities of daily living, making your bed, making your laundry, brushing your teeth. It predicts living by yourself, okay, without the assistance. That's not that big of a deal to you guys right now, probably. But for your grandparents, it's going to become it. One of my wife's best friends, they're having to take, and they may even have to have the courts intervene to get her father put into assisted living. Because he refuses to go, but he can't take care of himself. And do things. He has some dementia. It's not a great, getting old sucks. Okay? But that's why we need to care. Okay? Now, for other purposes, for kind of less morbid purposes, why might it be useful to know your leg strength or your grip strength, okay? Or how much you can bench press, or how many push-ups you can do? Well, it will help us design an individual training program. If we know your pre-training value, we know where you're starting. My grip strength was 80 pounds, okay, or 90 pounds, or whatever it was. Now we're going to put me on a grip strength training regimen. Right, I'm going to squeeze a tennis ball all day or something like that. I train, I can reevaluate, see if I got stronger, and then train some more. So it provides us objective feedback. Is what you're doing working? Are you getting better? Or you're doing nothing and you're backsliding and it's getting worse. Okay? It will help us there. As we mentioned, it can help us identify muscular deficiencies or imbalance. So my right arm was at about, what did I say, it was like 90 or something like that. Okay. To my left. So my left was just above 80, right? That time I got like 95. So it's like 80 in this hand, 95 pounds in my other hand. Okay? What if rather than 80, it was like 30 on this side and 95 on this side? You're like, ooh, that's an imbalance. Dr. Black probably needs to work on his left side for some particular reason. Okay? Having imbalances can potentially lead to injury. It can also provide kind of some information about what you need. So we talked about these things, factors of strength, okay? So when we're going to assess muscular fitness, you need to appreciate some things about the tests that we use. The tests that you use are very specific to a muscle or a muscle group. The grip strength test is very specific to, right, to testing my forearm muscles. It's not telling us anything about my leg strength, right, or my abdominal strength, or my bench press strength, and it's just specific to the muscles or the muscle group that we're testing. So we may need to test and assess across many, many muscles. Or we need to pick the muscles that we think are the most important for whatever it is that we're going to train or rehab or something. So just remember, okay, there is no single test that exists for evaluating total body muscular strength. There's no one perfect test. Right? Although the leg press strength test tends to be about as good a predictor of all sorts of things as anything else. Okay? So tests are also specific to contraction type. So the grip strength test that I just did is an isometric contraction. The muscle doesn't change length. Versus say a dynamic contraction where I'm doing say a squat where I've got to go down and do an eccentric contraction going down and a concentric coming back up. Okay, so you may get very different kind of values on those things. Right? So you just need to know that whatever I'm measuring is specific to that exact test. It's going to depend upon the speed or velocity of movement. We don't really cover this in this class too much anymore, but the faster you go, right, the less force you're. So if you're going to test somebody, You want to put them on like a particular speed. So like I'm going to do squats. You want to put me on like a metronome or a beat or something where it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And you know kind of what my speed of movement is going to be. Because that's going to affect what your numbers look like. Okay? It's very, very going to be sensitive to type of equipment. Are you using free weights? Are you using some kind of machine? Are you using resistance bands? Okay? Each of these things is going to give you a slightly different number that's also very specific to range of motion. Okay? The larger the range of motion, there's a greater chance that your values are going to be a little bit lower. Okay? The smaller the range of motion, especially if it's in kind of the stronger portion of your range of motion, then you're going to get a little higher. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll stop here. Okay, stop here for now, and then we'll pick this up on Monday. So please, please, please make sure. Okay, if you have your assignment thing written out, please make sure just leave it on one of these desks. Leave it with me. Okay. If you didn't do this, then please just email it to me, and that's fine. Okay, for my Zoom folks, you can bring it by the office if you want, or you can email it to me. That's also okay. Okay. No assignment for next Monday. What we will probably do is lecture, and finish this, and start some other stuff on Monday, and then we will look at however we want to. We'll talk on Monday about how we want to try to do lab. We'll look at what the weather looks like for Wednesday. Because my thoughts are that we may do a little bit of lab stuff to try to go outside, okay? So you guys can spread out even more than we are in here. And we'll do some push-ups, we'll do some sit-ups, we'll pass around the grip strength thing with a bottle of hand sanitizer and a thing of Clorox wipes, and we can at least get that part of it. Okay? That's what I'm thinking, but if the weather's not going to work, if you guys feel really, really uncomfortable doing that, then we can kind of modify it. But that's kind of what we're looking at. Probably lab next Wednesday, we'll do some more lecture. Okay? All right. Have a good weekend, guys. Make good choices.